Donald Trump's latest defense of his cover-up of the Epstein child sex trafficking scandal is that somebody forged his signature on a birthday card submission 30 years ago, included into a book, along with 50 or 60 other submissions created by Ghislaine Maxwell, and that's not his signature. He's questioning the validity and the veracity of the document, the genuineness of it. We call it the authenticity. He's making this into a question document case. Well, let me talk about it from the perspective of a trial lawyer that's handled question documents and tell you why this is doomed to failure, including his latest attempts to say, that's not my signature. In order to believe Donald Trump, in order to believe his latest defenses, you have to suspend reality, suspend logic. Here's what you have to believe in this order: that somebody, either with a time machine or at the time 30 years ago, knowing that Donald Trump would one day be president and knowing that Jeffrey Epstein would eventually be outed as the sexual child sex trafficker and predator that he was, made a birthday card submission for Donald Trump at the request of Ghislaine Maxwell, who's already admitted that she's the one that collected all of these documents, doodled an obscene silhouette of a woman, used language just like Donald Trump, and signed it with a personal signature of Donald that almost exactly matches dozens and dozens and dozens of other signatures from around that very time, and glued it into the book to embarrass Donald Trump when he was going to become president one day. You have to believe every link in that chain. But let me take it from the forged document standpoint, because this happens in court, in the courts of law, more than you would expect. I've been involved with probably half a dozen questioned document cases in my career where somebody says, you're at a deposition, and they pull down their glasses. That's not my signature. Oh, now we're off to that's not my. So you're claiming that that's not authentic. See, the rules of evidence in court require that for something to be admitted into evidence as genuine, you have to lay a foundation. You have to show that it came out of a record. You have to show that it's in regular form. You have to show if there's a signature on it, that the signatures are true, that they are authentic. And if somebody questions the document, now you're off into a question documents case, because that becomes their defense. And you have to therefore eventually prove the authenticity of the document. How do you do that? And that's the part that the Taylor Budowiches, who's like the deputy communications director, who's posting stuff that actually hurts their case because nobody's talking to them, because there's no adult lawyer in the White House telling somebody like Taylor Budowich that posting where you say, I've got a whole bunch of signatures right here for Donald Trump and none of them match, actually doesn't help your case. It hurts your case. But there's nobody in the White House to tell them that. There's only enablers and sycophants and bootlickers. Let's get back to question documents, because that's what Donald Trump is claiming. He's claiming it's a forgery. How do you determine if a document is real or forged? The trier of fact, in this case, generally a jury, would compare an exemplar of the signature. In other words, a confirmed, authentic signature or multiple signatures of the person. They get it from public filings. They get it from court documents. If you happen to be the president of the United States, you get it from archives. You get it from newspapers and reporting at the time, where he can't deny that is a signature. And once you line up one or more exemplars, you then present that to the jury along with the questioned signature. And they are empowered as the trier of fact to determine whether that is a forged signature or not. Now, could you have an expert? Sure. It's very exciting in a movie when the handwriting expert comes in to the room, or what we call the question documents expert. Now, I've dealt with those people in the past as well. A lot of them come out of the FBI, where they have handwriting analysts. Some of them come out of the postal investigators. Some of the best investigators, at least before Donald Trump, were in the Postal Service. Now, because they bring claims for mail fraud particularly, and they're very good. But usually they're from the FBI, from Langley, they're retired, and now they're making money, selling themselves out, selling themselves as question documents experts, but you don't need a questions document expert. Now, what will they do? And if you don't have one, what do you do in front of a jury? Well, on a big electronic screen or one in front of them, you do the signature that somebody has challenged. In this case, Donald Trump challenging Donald at the bottom, which looks like pubic hair on the woman, right? If we're just focusing on the signature for this particular hot take, and you would put up a dozen Donalds that are confirmed to be his. Now, let's talk about why Taylor Budowich just screwed Donald Trump as his communications director. Because he's not smart. This is the same guy that got subpoenaed by the Jan 6 committee because he ran for Save America PAC. He collected all the money and did all the planning at the ellipse on Jan 6th that led to the insurrection and attack on the Capitol. So they wanted to know about the planning and what was known in advance and the documents, the money, who contributed, all for the Jan 6 committee. He eventually sued the Jan 6 committee. He lost and he had to give testimony. That Taylor Budowich. He says, let me show you this. I've got a bunch of his signatures just laying around he did in social media, and they don't match. They all say Donald Trump. Right. But Donald Trump, I guess he didn't bother asking Trump. When Trump signs personal notes, not official, he doesn't use Donald J. Trump. He uses Donald. So all of those quote unquote versions, Taylor, that you have out there only prove the point. So if you're a trial lawyer trying to prove that the document is real, is true, is not forged, you take the question signature and then you start doing overlays and you start pointing out all the components of a signature. The way the D looks, the way the other letters look, the line at the end. They all have names in question document world, And basically the person's personal font. Now look, unless you use an auto pen, which I don't recommend, and of course Trump heaped a lot of abuse on Biden for using it, although Trump uses it as well to sign things. Unless you use a mechanical or electronic version of your signature, you can't repeat your signature exactly, and that's what the civilians in the jury box are going to be told. Nobody's a robot. I have a signature. If I do it 10 times, it'll look different slightly in 10 different versions, especially if I do it over time. But that's not what you're looking for, exact overlay match. You're looking for elements that suggest the slant. It's almost like a fingerprint, the slant of a letter, the way a letter looks. There might be 5 different ways a D looks for Donald Trump, but it fits within that hierarchy of the D's. This is the way the N looks. This is the way the D looks. This is the way the trailing off line at the end looks. This is the pressure used by the pen. This is a heavier pressure on the D, a lighter pressure on the end letters. The type of ink, if they can actually get the document and not a photocopy of it, they can test the ink. Somebody can test the ink. But again, we believe that juries looking at documents can determine and become instant handwriting experts about documents and their signature. So all of this argument that Donald Trump is making actually will lose in front of a jury if it ever gets that far. Now, it's likely not going to be something that the Wall Street Journal in their lawsuit with Donald Trump is going to be able to use on a motion to dismiss or a summary judgment. But if they ever, God forbid, get the trial on defamation, they can say, first of all, it's his signature. And they go through all the evidence that I just outlined, the way I just outlined it for you in front of the jury. Secondly, even if it's not his signature, we didn't know it wasn't his signature. And newspapers and media outlets like ours enjoy a protection against defamation suits. When it's a public figure like Trump, he has to prove that we reported something with actual malice, meaning we knew or should have known that what we're reporting or commenting on was false, and or we knew it was false, or that we recklessly disregarded its truth or falsity. So it's not enough just to say this. You have to prove that I knew that was false. And all of the information the Wall Street Journal was reporting on is coming out of the public record. They got a leak. that showed them the birthday card in July. We now have a copy of that birthday card that matches exactly the reporting from the Wall Street Journal in their description, because the reporters were describing what they were seeing. Now we've got the picture, we've got the photo, we've got the signature. We can make our own determinations. So if you're the jury, you get the card. You see the signatures. You line them up against 10 other signatures that are exactly the same or close to it. But Taylor Buttigieg used the ones that say Donald, not the ones that say Donald Trump, because you just hanged yourself, for it. So what I wanted to do here on this particular hot take is use my trial skills, somebody that's worked with question documents, but on the other side of somebody saying, that's not my signature, and tell you why this one is doomed to failure and strengthens the hand of the Wall Street Journal in their $2 billion suit. If I'm the Wall Street Journal, I not only move to dismiss the case with Judge Gales in Florida, but I go one step further. I bring a countersuit against Donald Trump. If he's going to bring this up in some sort of filing in court with his lawyer, Alejandro Brito, signing it, he's setting himself up for bad faith filing, maybe bad faith prosecution, maybe sanctionable conduct, to continue to argue that this is not his card. As I said at the top, the jury or the public has to believe that somebody wanting to hurt Donald Trump replicated his signature almost to a T, used language and vernacular and grammar and syntax and structure like Donald Trump at the time, including words that he has used subsequently and in the past, to design a card to suggest that he knows more about Jeffrey Epstein's secret child sex trafficking, predator, and pedophile life that he's letting on now. To embarrass him, they glued it into this book 30 years ago with his signature, hoping that somebody would find it while it was sitting on a shelf in the Epstein house. You see where this is going? Hoping that somebody would find it and bring it to the public's attention in 2025 to embarrass now President Trump. You got to buy all that in order to support Trump's version of the timeline. Who's going to buy that? And it would be different, as I said before, and this would be me in the defense of the Wall Street Journal posture. It would be different if it was like a single scrap of paper that was they found. Oh, look, a Donald Trump birthday card. Here it is. This is glued into pages and pages and pages of a book that Ghislaine Maxwell has admitted that she created. That her mummy gave her daddy an album just like it for his birthday, for his 80th, and she liked it, so she replicated that for Epstein. And so everybody's a fraud, everybody's a question document. I don't hear Bill Clinton saying that's not his submission, or Alan Dershowitz, or Leon Black. And then there's another page. So now they not only forged Trump's signature to embarrass him, but they also, as a hoax, a guy named Jay Pashkow, who's a real estate guy down in Florida, he submitted a submission which indicated that everybody knows that Donald Trump and Epstein were trading girls and women. He had a picture of them with a giant $22,500 check, which is basically saying, with a line under it about Epstein selling Trump damaged goods in women. Pashkow's also forged? No. So it's not even a leap of faith. There are this is too divorced from reality and logic for anyone to accept Donald Trump's defenses. And so we're going to continue to drill down on it here on the MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF. I'm Michael Popok. Hit the free subscribe button here at Meidas over on Legal AF YouTube channel. Join us on the Legal AF Substack. Until my next report, I'm Michael Popok.
Hey everybody, Ben Meiselas here from the MeidasTouch Network. I wanted to let you know about my podcast partner, Michael Popok's new law firm. It's called the Popok Firm. Michael Popok's pursuing his dream of starting his own law firm, really based on the popular demand by all the Meidas Mighty and Legal AFers who are approaching Michael Popok with their cases and saying, can you help us? And at that time, Popok was not able to. So he went out on his own. He started the Popok Firm, where he is now handling catastrophic injury cases like car accident cases, trucking cases, malpractice cases, big negligence cases, wrongful death cases. So if you or someone you know have a case like this, the consultation with Popok's firm is free. Give him a call, see if you have a case. It's thepopokfirm.com, thepopokfirm.com, or you can call 877-POPOK-AF, P-O-P-O-K-A-F. So 1-877-POPOK-AF. Give Michael Popok a call, and I'm really proud of you, Popok. Thanks for all the hard work you're putting in.